Hey folks, Jimmy Drab here. Just wanted to quickly let folks know that there is a new series coming up on Vinyl and Vision, presented by Psychic Static. We'll be focusing and featuring noise rock bands from now until October 27th to the start date of No Coast Fest 2022 in Denton, Texas at Rubber Glove Studios. We represent the Hammer Party, and they will be performing at the No Coast Fest this year, and we are going to be speaking to a number of bands that are on that bill. So if you had any questions about that festival, if you've heard about it at all, or if you haven't heard about it at all, we'll be speaking to a number of the bands that are performing this year to bring you a little insight into what that fest is all about, what noise rock is all about, and what it even is, and what it means to the people who make it. Stay tuned for that, folks. We're going to have quite a number of shows from now until the end of October. So give us a follow on social medias, on Instagram and Facebook to find more information about it and updates as they become available. We also have a brand new release coming up from the Hammer Party. Their new EP is coming out in September. So give us a follow and find out more about those things as they become available. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Let's sit down and listen to records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on Vinyl and Vision.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision, folks. Episode 75 with all three members, Rachael McNally, Chris O'Rourke, and Derek Van Beever of Sleepyhead. New Alchemy is the new and long-awaited album from indie rock darlings Sleepyhead, a New York, Boston-based band. Wonderful people and a great conversation, which miraculously is the first time I have ever posted an episode with no edits. The conversation was just that good. The hang was just that great with this band, and they just kind of hit every point spot on, and it was a really great conversation. Well, I feel like we did gloss over some things based on the bio of theirs that I have read, and obviously being in the midst of this conversation, I knew that there were some things that we could discuss, but for continuity's sake of the show, it didn't seem appropriate to try to dive into some of these topics further, and so they just kind of just pushed away from them and pushed on with the conversation. But it's a beautiful album, really, in its entirety. We talk obviously about it very in depth, and as a matter of fact, I'm doing something a little different tonight, where I actually am not playing the music about the record that we spoke of, but I'm actually going to feature small segments of the songs on Sleepyhead's new album that we discuss, kind of to add a little bit of a context to the conversation and to what the band is describing about the album and about those songs. And so I hope you enjoy that. I actually find it to be pretty helpful in digesting a new album, which some people need a lot of time to sit with maybe and kind of like understand it a little bit better. But it's a great one, and it's out now. Everywhere that you find music digitally, streaming, Spotify and Apple Music, and of course Bandcamp. So links will be provided to Sleepyhead's Bandcamp page in the show notes, so you can easily find it and click on it and purchase that digital download. It's only available digitally for now. The band will hopefully be creating some kind of physical format. We do discuss that a little bit at the end of the show. But as for right now, digital is the only way to consume it, so I ask you to please do that. Please purchase the album from the band. They've worked very long and hard on this record. It took a very long time, and it was definitely a labor of love on their behalf. So let's give a little back to a band that has been giving so much. Topic of discussion tonight is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Greatest Hits album. This is a first. Absolutely wonderful album. I mean, Tom Petty is one of the greatest of all times, and it was an honor to speak with this band about such a great record. If you're a big fan of this album, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Greatest Hits, there's a good chance that you will like New Alchemy by Sleepyhead. And if by chance you have already listened to New Alchemy by Sleepyhead and you like it and have not heard of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, there's a good chance you'll probably like this Greatest Hits album too. So I encourage you to go take a listen to both. Thank you very much, folks. All we ask here is that you do what you do with the internet. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, review. Follow us on social medias, Instagram and Facebook, to find out more about us and get details and updates as they become available. And we thank you very much for listening. Enjoy. Hello, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks. Thanks for doing this with us.
Oh, it's actually my honor. When I was approached with the idea of speaking with your band Sleepyhead, I immediately was just like, I know that band. I know I've heard of that band.
Are you from Providence or something?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was looking through all your past episodes and I saw several friends of mine.
I see. Okay.
From Providence that I like Jay Ryan, Rick Pelletier.
Yep.
From your Satellite and Mark Stone. Yeah.
That's what I figured, because I mean, for some reason I felt like Sleepyhead has some kind of connection to Providence.
We do. We have a big Providence connection for sure.
Right. Everyone's entering the room now.
Yeah.
Hi, Derek.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Thanks.
Everyone's on their own computer today, huh?
Yeah. Rachel and I are in the same house, but we figured it's probably was easier for us to be in different rooms.
Oh, okay.
Rachel, you got the stripe memo, and Chris, you got the gray shirt memo. So good.
Yeah. Wow, look at that. We're all what, monochromatic? Is that what that is?
I don't know. Very coordinated.
Yes. Why? Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Chris and I were just talking about your Providence connection.
Right.
You guys are very well connected to Rhode Island, it seems.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did he explain already how we got our summer apartment?
No, not yet. Actually, we just literally started talking before you signed in.
There is a previous Providence connection to the summer apartment. But the summer apartment's a good story.
Okay.
I know. Well,
hit me.
We were wandering around Providence.
Right after the band. Right after the band formed.
Yes, right after the band form. And this was like we were going to put our summer into it. And so our first bass player, Mike, stuck a sign on his T-shirt that said, "We're looking for a summer sublet." And it ended up working. we saw one. Do you know Eliza? Do you know her?
No, I'm not sure.
She only lived in Providence for a short time.
So anyway, so we went and looked at her place, but it wasn't big enough. And then somehow we found someone else. So it did work. It was sort of.
Just from putting a sign on your bass player walking around. Look at that. That's the best type of advertising.
Yeah.
The reason the Providence connection exists is, well, my father actually went to Providence College, but
that's not why.
That's not why. Although Providence College is connected. So John McClain from Six Finger Satellite is one of my oldest friends. His parents and my parents were friends on Cape Cod when they lived there for a little while. That's where I'm from. He's 2 years older than me. But I've literally known him since I was a baby. Like his younger sister was the only person at my first birthday party, for instance.
Oh wow, okay.
So I've known him all my life, and when he really was a huge influence on turning me on to awesome music, especially being 2 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And so I knew him. So when Sleepyhead formed in New York, and we wanted to kind of really try to get the band off the ground, we knew that Providence in the summers, you could find cheap places, and Six Finger Satellite said we could share their rehearsal space for a couple of months. So
cool.
So that's why we went down there. We lived there for one summer. I think it was the summer of 1990, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would have been it. Yes. Yeah. I just graduated from NYU. Yeah. So you probably know the building we were in. Does that have a name, Chris?
It probably does. It was in Pawtucket, and now it's probably something more fancy, but there was a big building in Pawtucket.
Right. Was it where the parlor was? Is that where you were rehearsing, or was
I think it probably was either in that exact building or one of really, really close to there.
Right. Okay. It was gross.
Yeah, it was really gross.
Lots of broken glass. You'd walk down the hall with all this broken glass, but somehow at the time that did not bother us.
No, not at all.
Well, you were punks, right?
Oh,
Awesome. They had a PA, everything, it was like terrible, like bro rock bands played in the rooms next
Oh,
door.
yeah.
Rachel,
Yeah.
wasn't that where we had the guy next door who, oh no, that was in Hoboken, who was always doing his vocal exercises going, I. Never mind. I don't think that was in Providence. I
it
think that
was not.
yeah.
No, but see, I had banished that from my mind, and now
Uh-oh.
put it back in.
So that's
Uh-oh.
so I had actually in high school, because my parents knew John's parents, I was sort of trusted. I could take the bus up to Providence from Cape Cod, and John would take me to see shows. He'd let me sit on Six Finger Satellite practices. Sometimes they'd let me pick up a guitar in in kind of the early days of Six Finger Satellite. And we just met so many people from Providence who are just awesome people. And
Yeah. Yeah, no, it turns out there's a lot of great musicians and artists in this city. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
I know.
So was that prior to Sub Pop, like their first record, like when you would sit
it
in on
was
rehearsals?
prior to it, but maybe consecutive to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right around that time. Like I remember seeing Medicine Ball when I was in high school at this big outdoor something. I was like, oh, and then John was like, oh yeah, those are my friends. I was like, what? They're your friends? You're friends with the people in the band? And they came up and like Mark Stone and Don and Pete Phillips, who was in the band at the time in the early days in Medicine Ball, and then we just met, Velvet Crush and Honey Bunch and Small Factory and
all of them, all the greats
in the 90s.
Even people who didn't play music, like Cynthia.
Cynthia Reed.
Yes, Reed. Yes, I love Cynthia. Do you
Cynthia,
know that?
She doesn't play music?
She did a little bit.
Okay,
but,
I thought so.
Right. So when we play in Providence, there's always people that we see from way back. I'm trying to book something there in the fall. I haven't nailed it down yet, but I think I've got someone who's helping out with that.
I think you have plenty of resources. You shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, because you're going to be rehearsing. You're going to be playing, promoting the new record.
Yep, exactly.
New Alchemy.
Yep.
Awesome.
Comes out tomorrow. I don't know when this is going to air though. Not so
probably next week. So the release date will already be it'll already be out.
Yeah,
that's great. Let me see. So you first said how you grew up in Cape Cod.
I did. I grew up in Falmouth on Cape Cod, and then went straight from Cape Cod to Manhattan for college, and that's where I met Rachel and Mike, the first Sleepyhead bass player.
Oh, right, and that was what, 89?
Yeah, that was the band started in 89.
You came in the fall of 88.
Yeah, the fall of my second year at NYU. Well, we met. Rachel was my RA. Now she's my wife. So there's that for you.
So she's still keeping tabs on you.
Right. And her too.
Yeah. So Mike, the first bass player, Mike, who is a filmmaker who lives in North Carolina now, where he's from. He saw me in our dorm, the Brittany dorm at NYU. And this is a really corny story, but I was wearing a Dinosaur Jr. t-shirt. And he was like, oh, you like Dinosaur Jr.? Awesome. You're coming back to my room. We're going to listen to records for the rest of the day. I was like, sounds awesome. So that's how I met him. And he's with this other guy, Gene, that we became friends with. And it wasn't until the end of the year, Rachel can tell it. Mike was kind of like, Rachel, I think, mentioned that Mike said he had a bass, and I was like, bring it back. I had already brought my guitar. He's like, okay, next year I'll bring it back.
Right. And that was the first time in my life that I had really wanted to be in a band, because my musical background all through high school was musical theater. Hello, Dolly, West Side Story, Oliver, all of that. And so I missed all of the great performances in Boston in the 80s. I didn't go to any. I was just memorizing, ballads from musical theater plays in my high school. And so, but my junior year, that was the first year I was an RA, and I went out with this guy, and he played bass in a band, this little underground band. I can't even remember what the name of it was.
They were
Probably blocked it out because we broke up that year. It was not a long-lasting relationship, but he was very nice and would always put us up when Sleepyhead came through Chicago. Anyway, that was really the beginning of me wanting to be a band, because we were in these basements of apartment buildings in Brooklyn, and I just thought, this seems really fun. So that was happening at the same time that I was getting to know Chris just as a friend, and he was playing guitar all the time. So I said, okay, I will learn how to play something this summer and I will come back. And that just seemed very normal to me. Like you could just learn an instrument and then start a band and it would work out. So I did. And we had a drum set in my house from when my father was in high school. He played, but because we always lived in apartments, we never had the drums out. But I said, we'll muffle everything. And so I had this drum kit in my bedroom with foam everywhere, towels on all the cymbals. So I did not drive anyone to, I don't know, drink or sleeping off the building because nobody could hear my initial attempts at playing the drums. So by the end of that summer, I had my one beat and I headed back to NYU with the drums and we practiced soon after, I think right away, once we were back.
Interesting. Wait, so now you were saying Boston, is that where you're from?
Well, I grew up in the Bronx until 4th grade, and then I was in Cambridge through the end of high school. And then I went back to NYU. So I just alternate between Massachusetts and New York.
And New York. Sure. And so you weren't playing music prior to going to college and meeting Chris?
No, I think I had like one piano lesson back in 4th grade or 5th grade. And at school, there was... violin, terrible, screeching, hot cross buns is somewhere in a
like a fiddlestick or something.
Yeah, so
I had to play one of those. It was horrible.
But that was really it. So I just kind of got my 4 limbs moving. But here's a funny thing. I was thinking about this the other day. The musical theater background did help me because tap dancing in my mind is very related to drumming.
Rhythmic,
in all the shifts. Yeah, it's rhythmic and the shifting of your weight. Because I think some people don't realize when you're playing the drums, like all your weight is in your butt. You know what I mean? Like you're not stabilizing yourself that much. In order to be able to use your feet enough, you have to just, I don't know. So somehow
you should see Rachel and we do a tap dance routine on Beever too.
That's true.
Oh yeah? Is that going to be incorporated in the new shows?
We thought about incorporating it in between sets sometime, but it's pretty ridiculous.
Sure. I used to tap dance when I was a kid. Actually, I was the only boy in my class as a kid.
I believe it. So
our teacher loved us.
I bet.
I'm sure. I didn't get beyond step ball change. That's about it.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I actually remember telling somebody about like I think it was the only dance recital I did. It was me and my brothers, so there's 3 of us.
Awesome.
Our teacher loved us because we were the only boys she's ever taught. Yeah. And the recital we did was actually we had to wear these purple shirts that had these like gold sequined lightning bolts on it.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. God, I wish I had that now.
We should get those.
No. Yeah, I've been thinking we need some more sparkle in our stage outfits, actually, gentlemen. So maybe
never too late.
7th, go that route.
Tell you when we're talking about the early days of Sleepyhead, we did not know Derek at the time. He was living his own life. But Derek has actually been in Sleepyhead longer than either of the other 2 bass players.
Combined.
Yeah.
But I'm still the new guy, though.
Yeah, you're the returning member.
But it was kind of a slow, like now we're peaking.
I'm gonna be like forever like the Ronnie Wood of the band. It's like he joined the Stones and he's still the new guy.
He is so good.
No, I'm just saying, like he's still like the new guy. Like I empathize with Ronnie.
Yeah. Well, Derek, I mean,
of course, Ron Wood has been in the Stones longer than any other guitar player.
Yeah, but he's still the new guy.
Right. He's probably the youngest too, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And that's true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Derek's the youngest.
Okay.
You
are.
Yeah,
interesting.
Sometimes Rachel's and our daughter has played bass with us, and our son actually plays guitar in 2 songs. They bring the average age of the band way down. So.
Okay.
Derek's a little younger than Rachel and myself.
Yeah, I'm not bringing in the young crowds like I used to. we gotta bring your kids in, guys.
Yeah. Hey, well, Derek, you've been quiet over there. It's hard when there's 3 people speaking, but I want to make sure I get you included. I would like to know about your background as well. Like, kind of where'd you grow up?
I grew up mostly in Florida, so I don't know if this is the Tom Petty.
Oh, did you choose the record?
So no, but like, I mean, I kind of like came up through that stuff. But actually, so I moved to Florida when I was a kid from Holland. So I have like a Dutch background, then lived here in Florida for like 16, 17 years. And then my late wife and I, we moved here to Boston in 99. And I probably met Rachel 2 years after that at a faculty variety show, because we both played instruments. And so that's how we met. And I've been playing music my whole life. I mean, I'm just kind of like, I just, played in bands as a kid and all that stuff.
Yeah. And what was your first instrument?
It was always, so my best friend who's actually is going to play, I think, with us in New York, right? He had a drum set and a bass guitar. So we would I never I couldn't figure out the drums. So he would play drums and then I would just play bass, and we would just, play like some Cure and some REM and just stuff that we were listening to. And we would just sort of try to be that, and we would have to visualize the other parts. Anyway, I don't know if this is interesting to anybody.
Derek will never say this, but Derek is like the best musician of the three of us. He plays he plays the
most
instruments. It's because I have no fear. I don't mind sounding like shit most of the time. So I'll be like, yeah, I'll pick it up. Like,
he plays a lot of keyboards with us now.
Yeah, and I would say that's the Sleepyhead thing. I think that would Chris might. I don't know if you ever articulated, but I think what changed was when I started playing keyboards in the band. Like, Sleepyhead did not have a keyboard sound.
No.
And it kind of changed it from like a guitar rock band, I think, to a little bit, because I found this Wurlitzer 200 on Craigslist really cheap, and I fixed it up and I'm like, I like playing this. And I'm like, oh, it sounds like sort of classic rock that I like. And so I brought it to practice, and we just started writing songs that sounded more, like that, less.
I remember the day you told me
stuff.
Sorry, I remember the day you told me you bought that. I was like, "What? Oh, wow, that's cool." Yeah. I do think that really did.
I think it shifted my thing, because I'm not a keyboard player, but I just like the sound of it. So I'm like, I'm going to make it fit in these songs, and sometimes we write on it, and sometimes it's just like extra.
Wurlitzer 200, is that an electric piano?
Yeah, it's one of the early stuff. Yeah, I don't know if anybody listens about, that's like a music gear, but they would know what that is. So the Wurlitzer 200 is more that, like, one of the more popular Wurlitzer electric pianos.
Right, like one of the vintage ones. It's like it's a semi-acoustic, right? Because you need to plug it in.
It's all it's electromechanical.
Okay.
Sounds incredible.
And I love playing it because it has such a vibe to it. So like I always bring it to the gigs because it just creates sort of this oral space that I really like being in,
Sure. I have one of those too, actually. I love it. I mean, you can literally just bang on it and it just sounds good.
Yeah. And then forget about putting a few effects on it. You could just sit there forever and pretend you're like Herbie Hancock or something.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's exactly what I like to do with it. So, now I wanted to speak to you guys about a record that was important to you. And I'm interested to hear how you guys collectively came up with this choice of Tom Petty's greatest hits.
Are we the first band that's ever picked a greatest hits record on your podcast? I don't want to put you on the spot. It seemed like
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
It was. Yeah, I think it was hard. The three of us mostly really do like the same kind of music, same stuff. But to pick one thing is really hard.
Right. Especially between three people. I mean, if you were just speaking for yourself,
I would
it might
say our
be different.
Musical backgrounds are pretty different. So I like a lot of stuff. I'm like, I love this, and I'm like, well, I don't know if we could talk about this for an hour. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Same with some of the things. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Derek suggested it, and Rachel and I were like, "Oh, that's an interesting choice. That's a good choice." And I think like there's two questions there, which one of them is like, why did we pick Tom Petty, and the other is why did we pick a greatest hits record instead of, because he has a couple of amazing records and lots of really good records.
Of course. I think that's how you can answer the second question, is because it just encapsulates everything about him, because it's hard to just choose one of his records.
Right. I would, like probably if someone put a gun to my head and made me pick my favorite record of his, I think it would be Wildflowers. And that's just gotten so much attention in the last 2 years. It actually sounded like kind of a boring choice.
Okay.
And I really love his first couple of records. And I actually also really, really love the last record he made before he died, Hypnotic Eye. I think that like is kind of slept on, or maybe it's just on the reason we got it is Rachel and I saw him play at Fenway Park, and and somehow we got a free copy of the CD with our tickets when we bought the tickets. And
weird.
I'm not even sure I would have bought it, but it's actually really good.
Huh.
But today I was thinking about greatest hits records. And actually, I pulled some out. Like there are some bands like this, right? The Kink Chronicles.
Oh yeah.
That's
great.
That's how I learned about the Kinks, was this record.
Right. Or like the Buzzcocks, Going Steady, right?
Boom.
Is that in there?
Right there.
Perfect.
And and this is, in this XTC Waxworks.
Nice. Okay.
Which
Ramones Mania, maybe you have that one.
I know those are more like singles collections than greatest hits. I don't know what the difference is. And then of course everybody for my
Hot Rocks. Okay.
Here, another slightly weirder choice, but this is the first fall record I ever got.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
Like a compilation.
Well, it makes an extra interesting point because greatest hits records are really typically a really great place to start if you want to experiment with a band.
Right.
And this collection is, I think it's pretty good. As far as like a choice for you trying to reach some kind of commonality with a single choice between the three of you, it kind of covers everything, and every friggin' song is just amazing. It really is a greatest hits record. It's just perfect.
Yep. And it is, I feel like it probably says something, because what Derek said about us having really different musical backgrounds, but being in a band together is so fun and so amazing. Like, I really see it as like a triple Venn diagram. So there is that center spot with everything all three of us love and enjoy. And then there really are things that just Chris and Derek enjoy, and Derek and I, with our love of musical theater, it really, and then Chris and I have I don't know. So yeah, so I remember thinking, oh my gosh, we are going to need a chart to find something that we're all teachers.
But
so my go-to
usually
chart.
if we're practicing in the basement, like if we're like, hey, let's play a cover something, that's one that we're like, we can pick any petty song and be like, let's play it, and just sort of, it's like a good warm up, it's got harmonies, it's got cool chords, it's it's just like grooves. Instantly in you're on. It's just like, here you go.
Absolutely. And anyone we learn that we really get to the point where we could perform it, I feel like we have truly learned something from learning the song that moves us, a couple notches forward. So that is always very satisfying. Those songs are so fun to play. They really are.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah. Just listening to it is great. They're also catchy. What I've realized listening to it again last night was just such incredible booming choruses.
Yeah.
Like, man, that guy can write. He could write a hook like no one. Really.
It's so amazing. It's funny for me, and Derek's probably, I don't know, being from Florida too, like there was a time when I wouldn't have given Tom Petty the time of day because he wasn't punk, he wasn't indie, like to me, like, and I don't know what, I don't exactly remember when that flipped. I think I saw him with a friend of mine from high school, and I was trying to look up the set list. It was at Great Woods in Massachusetts, and which now it's called, I forget what it's called now.
I forget too.
So I looked up some set lists, and I thought I saw him in high school, but I now don't think it was. I think it was actually probably like in the mid 90s, and I must have been home in the summer, because like the one show I saw there in the 80s was with Bob Dylan, and I know I didn't see that.
And
I remember going and just thinking, oh my goodness, this is incredible. This band is so good. And then I think by that point, like some of my hangups over what has indie cred and what doesn't, I was not worried about that stuff anymore, and was much more open-minded about music. And also, I think also at some point I realized he actually was really cool, at least in the beginning, like sort of part of this power pop scene, and was very cool when they went to Europe, and was this, so
right. And there must be a certain point where as a musician and a songwriter, you start to appreciate for someone's ability to create a good song, regardless of whether it's pop or not. If it's a good song, it's a good song, and you have to like kind of respect that no matter what.
Totally. That's what happened. That's right.
And I would say that's like a common thread through all, like his lyrics are just these simple, straightforward. And I'm like, when you can write a song that's, he's just talking. It's just sort of like these beautiful, like simplicity in his lyrics that is I don't know. Somehow, like I would love to be able to sort of like get, out of my head and be like, this is how people talk. This is how they sing. Here's your core. Man, it's just, I can't say enough good things about his writing.
It is not easy to write like that. That's the
when you said choruses, I realized like I can't write a chorus to save my life. And I'm like, I really need to just study choruses. And like, this is the way to do it,
This might be a good lesson. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I actually think subconsciously we all picked this record because the next step we need to take as a band is to like figure out how to do what some of the things that they're doing.
Write more like universal theme.
Exactly.
Like
I feel like this one new song that I've been writing. Derek has some new songs too, and I feel like it could maybe be like this. But it's making me very much obsess over the lyrics because I want, like what Derek said, I want them to be universal. And like there's a like a, I don't know what the right word for it is, but in almost all of these songs, there's like an inroad for anybody listening who can
universality.
Right.
Universality.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what's sort of like why people might be turned off for it, because it's sort of like it's like somebody should have thought of this already. Somebody, of course, these songs should have been written.
Right.
Like these are in like our musical DNA. Like you hear it, nobody's going to be like, "Oh my God, Tom Petty sucks." Refugee, that's the worst song.
I'm sure there's some people out there.
Any of the ones you talk about.
Classic rock, it's but that's what my mindset was like at some point.
I have no hangups on it. For me, it's just
I don't anymore either.
Direct lineage of that dude.
Yeah,
right.
Of the rock sort of whatever. You know.
He has some bad songs too.
Yeah, of course he does.
But the great ones are just undeniably great to me, and they bring me a lot of pleasure and joy like listening to them. So
it's funny, for the majority of the research that I did tonight, I had picked up a book by Paul Zollo. It's Conversations with Tom Petty, so it's basically like an entire book of this guy interviewing Tom Petty, I think over the course of I want to say 20 years, but I think that's too long. But it was like years of just meeting with him and interviewing him constantly. And it's really in depth. It's really wild to read and kind of get for some insight into his mind. And it's just so funny how like humble he was, but at the same time, he knew he was like amazing. Like he knew the songs that he wrote were amazing when they came out.
Yeah.
Like he knew it was just like, this is good. This is it. This is going to be one. This is going to be a big hit.
Right.
Yep.
And it's pretty amazing, I think. I mean, so how do you feel about your songwriting at this time in your life?
I think I'm feeling pretty good about it. This is going to sound cocky. I feel like it's taken, I'm 51. It's a little weird that it's taken me. I mean, I think I was 19 when this band started. I feel like I finally figured out, maybe if not how to write songs, but what it should be like. And so I think I can edit out bad things. Like I'm really proud of this record that's coming out tomorrow, or will be out by the time people hear this. Really, really proud. Derek wrote 2 of the songs, which are amazing.
Okay.
But I'm not I am excited to be working on new ones too. So we have a couple of new songs that we're going to play in New York. Obviously we want to focus on the new album, but we are going to throw a couple of even newer ones in there. But it's so fun. We are enjoying, I should speak for myself. I am enjoying playing this band now, this moment, 2022, more than I ever have in the, whatever 30 years I've been playing this band. It's just so fun. And it's so exciting now to think, I think a song that's in my head, I think we can pull off. Part of it's also our producer, John Lupfer, that we record with, because he kind of helps pull that out too. Mm-hmm. But it's a kind of a fun feeling to think, it's what I want to hear is possible. I mean, I heard someone, I don't know who this was, but I heard some artist, it might've been a musician, it might've just been a writer or some other artist, say a lot of artists make art because they love other people's art, but there's never exactly the one perfect thing. I don't think that's not exactly true for me, because there are certain things I think are quite perfect. but there's something that just makes me want to write songs, and it's playing with Rachel and Derek. It's so fun to do it. It's work, like we put a lot of work into it, but it's like the best kind of work that's like exhilarating. So
it's gratifying, like when you write and finish a song, when you feel like you're all together and you're like, this song's done.
Yeah.
And like, we should just try to track this now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. So Derek and Rachel, I also throw the same thing to you. You also contribute to the writing process, correct?
I really don't. So I'll just say.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, I play the drums. Maybe I write backup vocal lines sometimes, and occasionally, sitting on the bed with Chris when he's working on lyrics, I'll come in with the missing word.
That one syllable.
Yeah, sometimes it is a syllable.
Sometimes it's really important, though.
It is.
I'm not gonna overstate my writing. Derek encourages me to write a song, so I will try to do that someday. And I guess way back when, Play and Rolling Rita, those are really old ones. I did write the lyrics to those. I guess all of Play. And Rolling Rita, Chris, then you had to help me halfway through. So anyway, so I will take a back seat on this question and turn.
Sure. Okay. Well, let me ask you one thing before you turn it over to Derek. Is like, didn't you do a couple of leads on this record? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but Chris writes the songs.
Okay, so but you're just performing it. You sing them.
Yeah, and now I'm waiting for Derek to write me a song to sing, because it really is wonderful to sing a song someone has written. You feel like it's entrusted to you to do the very best you can.
And it takes a lot of pressure off of you.
Sandy Dennery cover, right? That was sort of like
yes.
That
led me. Yes.
I mean, that wasn't my song, but that
Yes. You led me to that. Yeah.
The one way I would say that Rachel's selling herself short a little bit is like when we're trying to arrange songs, like how many times should that part in between the verses be? Should the bridge? Well, if there is a bridge, which is kind of some of our new songs are starting to have that. She's very helpful with that kind of stuff too.
That's true. Thank you, Chris.
Good editing.
And in the studio too, like listening back to something, being like, I think that's a little too long.
Sure.
Like that.
Yeah. No, that's very important. Arrangement is key. And Derek, so where do you stand on writing?
Well, during the making of this album, I guess it's been 7 years, right? I started writing my own batch of songs at one point. I'd never really written music before. I mean, I've done sort of like more instrumental type music and sort of more avant-garde kind of stuff. I've never tried writing sort of these pop rock songs.
Okay.
But so it just kind of came out. It's a weird thing. I don't want to get like too mystical about it, but it's definitely, it all happened at once. I'm a little bit worried that it's not going to happen again. I'm serious. It's
you
like
have new songs.
Yeah. I have my newest song. I definitely think is my favorite song. I haven't recorded it yet, but it's been a while. I'm not going to tell you how long it's been since I've written that one. So I'm a little, it's like, it's scary too. So writing is both like, I love it when it comes out, but when it's not happening, it's a little bit, you kind of wonder where the muse is and what shifted.
Well, can I maybe shed some light on that situation for you?
Please.
You happen to be in a band with talented people that are also kind of writing as well. Obviously, Chris, I mean, I guess it's fair to say that Chris does the majority of the writing. But so you don't have to feel pressure that you need to come up with something, because Chris is always going to have something.
Now, that's nice of you to say, but I want you, Derek, to have some songs on the new record.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, like, still, but that's the thing. You're going to come up with them eventually. But it's just nice to not have that pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's a more existential thing. I'm like, I think I might just have these batch of songs in me. Like
I know that's not true.
I think it's better to sort of leave it that way, because that way it puts less pressure for the next batch. Be like, that was nice. Another one came out,
Yeah. Well, it's also the inspiration too. Like sometimes just, doing shows and being on the road and kind of like performing more often is all you need to really kind of get your juices flowing, right?
Yeah. I mean, one more thing about, if you want to talk about like creative stuff, like I feel like when I was writing all those songs, like I was journaling every day, and that's the one thing I think that process allowed me to just scribe stuff. And I've taken a break from that, and I'm pretty sure that's the connection, because I handwrite everything. I'm not really good about doing typing on computers for lyrics. Like I like to see it in my own shitty handwriting, and it's crossed out and, corrections made. So, So I just gave myself advice. So there we go.
Look at that. I love these therapy sessions. They're great.
Thank you for that. How much is this?
Oh, nothing. It's absolutely free. So, I guess we should probably get into this record. Now, so you chose a greatest hits record. Let's see. There is a total of 18 songs on this record. So what I did was I kind of just did a general research on a number of these songs. And I kind of based on what I found out about some songs, I just wrote down some facts about those. And some I actually had some questions. And then some I just kind of completely skipped. Cool. So I actually don't even know how many questions I have here. Because we just go right down the list. And so if we go down the list, we're going to start with the first song, American Girl.
Mm-hmm. American Girl, 256 million streams on Spotify. 256 million.
Just that one song.
That one song, 256 million streams.
See, now that song is so old, right? And I feel like, again, going back to my high school music really being all musical theater, but I remember it from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's in that. It is? Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, it's in a scene and toilet papers being thrown. But I can remember loving that song. But again, at that time, having no sense at all, I want to play that song. It just wasn't in my head, the band identity.
Sure. Well, did you know Tom Petty at that time?
Well, I knew that song and I knew him, and then I knew the now I'm gonna space on the name of the one. The video, I feel like this was also maybe high school. Well, with Alice in Wonderland.
Don't come around here. No, don't come around here.
Don't come around here.
And I remember liking that, but I like the other one better. And then I just wasn't listening to a lot of rock or pop, or I just wasn't. So, but I did love that song in the movie, and anytime I heard it after that on the radio.
Yeah, well, it is infectious. That reminds me. So, can each of you tell me when you discovered Tom Petty?
I bet for me it was that movie. So that would have been high school, freshman or sophomore year, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Fast Times at
Ridgemont High. It was when I moved to America in the 80s. So it was 82, the birth of MTV. And they were airing the Tom Petty song, the You Got Lucky, right? So they were playing that in between Bananarama, Fun Boy 3, and Michael Jackson. So it's here's this video. I had no idea contextually where this comes from. I'm probably 10 years old, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This seems spacey, but they're playing real instruments, and the guy looks like he's pissed off, and it's just he's got the right attitude, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. So that was the Tom Petty I sort of was introduced to, that version.
That's probably about the same for me, that timing.
Yeah.
That stuff.
But listening now to American, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. So listening now to American Girl, I didn't hear that until much later in my life. but I identify a lot with that. It's just, I lived in Orlando for a short time. So when he talks about 441, waves crashing, I'm like, oh yeah, that's just the sound of traffic, and it's this sort of melancholic song about this girl who had to die trying, and so I identify I've sort of, in my mind, I associate this song a lot with my late wife, so because she was a Florida girl, typical American girl, and so I have a lot of positive, it's very rock fun song. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear, first of all. Secondly, you mentioned that line, the 441. Is that in Florida? I didn't realize it was in Florida.
Yeah, it runs through there. It's a central sort of artery.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that I maybe I'm confused, but I thought he may have written this in California. I didn't know if that had.
You know what? Maybe he did, but there is. Okay, so I might have it totally wrong, but in my mind, 441 is the Orange Blossom Trail. So somebody who's probably going to call up or whatever and be like,
it's so universal,
OBT, right? Man.
It's funny because I'm a fourth grade teacher and I teach writing, and the things I teach my fourth graders, use sensory imagery, the waves crack, use specific detail, there's a lot of all that stuff in this song. I also think this song, like kind of like Born in the USA, like it was just like, yeah, Born in the USA, but no one was really listening to the fact that that song was really a critique. And I think the same thing with American Girl. I mean, I think that's why it has 256 million streams, is because people are like, American Girl, and they're not listening. This song is sad. It is like deeply sad.
Kind of, yeah.
But it's like this anthemic, thing, and it's beautiful, the lyrics. So
yeah. I mean, I think that was one of his charms, was that he was able to kind of like write these poppy, upbeat songs, but lyrically have like this really kind of sensitive, emotive kind of sense about him, touching on everyone's heartstrings, as far as this, like being universal, but also being like just kind of very real, I guess. Yeah. Very real, like emotions that people feel on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So let's see. So what do I have here? I have that. So in the book that I was reading, Conversations with Tom Petty by Paul Zollo, Tom says that he lived in an apartment in Encino, right by the freeway. Okay, so it was in California.
All right.
And the sound of the car sounded like the ocean, like you were saying, Derek. Hence the line, yeah, she could hear the cars roll by out on the 441, like waves crashing on the beach. And at that time he wrote it, it was the bicentennial year. So lots of red, white, and blue stuff were going on everywhere. And so I guess that's kind of like what led to this concept of singing about this American Girl specifically. Have there been any standout moments or memorable settings in which any of the songs for the new album have been written for you guys?
Well, I think, Derek, for you, Fort Misery.
Sorry, I was in the middle of researching. So 441 is in Gainesville. So there is
one in Gainesville.
Beatty Tower. So he was from Gainesville.
Okay. Well,
it's now Northwest 13. So I actually used to live when I went to college in Gainesville. So it's right down the street from it. So okay. Sorry,
okay.
What was the question? Sorry,
the thing is, it goes to the universal thing, right? It's like he managed to be simultaneously like a Southerner from Florida, which is not exactly like the what people think of as the South, but also California, and he just spread his wings out from coast to coast there. And so it means something to different people depending on where they're from, I think.
I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
On this album, I would say there are at least two songs that are very rooted in place. And so, Derek, I was saying Fort Misery for one you wrote, and then Chris, New Alchemy for you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Fort Misery right. So Fort Misery on the new album is sort of a reference. I grew up in Fort Myers, Florida when I moved to America, and we sort of lovingly called it Fort Misery. So I just like that title for something. And then one of the songs I wrote, as I was processing my grief, this came out, and that seemed like an apt title for a house that sort of lost sort of its structure, and you're holding yourself up behind sort of these in this fort of misery. So anyway, it's rooted in place because Fort Myers wasn't a really fun place to grow up, but really just the title comes from that.
Yeah, I imagine kind of like that contradiction or that juxtaposition coming from Holland. You said, right?
Yeah,
two way different places.
Yeah, and that's sort of like it is definitely tied up with Tom Petty. It's somehow, because like to me, it's like, oh, this is what America's about. This is what Americans talk like and sound like, and this is how you're cool, and this is what you can be like, kind of this weird sort of masculine guy, but still, be sensitive. And all his songs have that, this romanticism that like runs through it.
He's like got long hair. He's cool, but he's sort of, some of his songs are really
he's ugly. He's cool and he's ugly. So I'm like, oh man, anybody can do this.
He is kind of alien looking. Yeah.
I don't think he's ugly.
Early days. He's not a cute guy.
He's unique.
Unique, but he's gorgeous. He's beautiful.
And he can have this really warm, like he obviously he inhabits different personalities depending on the song. It's not him necessarily.
Right. Of course. So I'm sorry, Chris, Rachel was saying New Alchemy for you.
Yeah, the title track. So there was a place in my hometown called the New Alchemy Institute in the 70s and 80s. There in Falmouth, there's a lot of scientists because of the Oceanographic Institute. And a bunch of scientists just started this kind of experiment in sustainable living, like growing all their own food, fish farms, aquaculture, beehives, small little wind turbines, geodesic domes, greenhouses.
Wow.
And it was it was like, I used to go there on field trips, like as a kid in elementary school, or I did this summer program like called the Woods Hole Science School. And so I have these like just childhood memories of going to this place on a school bus or a van or something, and getting out and having scientists like show us all around. Here are the tilapia tanks, and here's what we're trying to do. We need to become more sustainable, and this whole raising up ecological awareness. So in the somehow many years ago, it sort of was just popped into my head. I might have just driven by where it used to be. It kind of shut down in 1990, but as it turns out, like a couple of people have kept it going, because Rachel and I went there recently, and we met the people who are keeping it going, and they took us on a tour, and they'd actually heard of our album before it came out and the song. So we're hoping maybe we can shoot a video there, but it's a really great place. And the song is really a tribute to it. And then the name New Alchemy just seemed like a good name for an album. So we stole the name of the song for the album.
Sure.
But definitely this place I envision. And then the song is like kind of a birdsy feel. There's a lot of 12-string Rickenbacker on it. And there's a, not a theremin, Mellotron. Thank you. Derek plays a Mellotron on it, like a real Mellotron that the Q Division has.
Again, I don't know how to play these things. I just have no fear of playing.
Like our producer's like, okay, the Mellotron, and he knew we needed it. Get it?
Yeah.
Like
because it broke.
But that thing is complicated, and he was pretty good at keeping it going for us, so we could get.
Yeah, Derek, you have a good sense of noise. You know what sounds sound good together.
Yeah,
definitely. This is funny now that as you guys were talking, and then I was thinking of the other songs, a lot of the songs are rooted in a place, because Pam and Eddie was inspired by some graffiti etched into a stair, which is a line in the song, in my late sister's apartment building. And also Tony the Drunk was inspired by a big sign that we all passed on our way to a ski trip with like 5 different families. And as we all arrived at the house, everyone kept saying, did you see that sign? I mean, this thing was big. It was like 5 feet by 6 feet. And it said, Tony the Drunk is a thief. And the drunk, you could tell, had been painted over and had a last name, but then that must not have been allowed. And it was painted over, not quite the same white. And so then it became Tony the Drunk.
And the song is completely fictional. And the sign is actually not there anymore, because it's on a route we travel quite frequently in the winter to go skiing. But that's, and then so there are those songs too are inspired by things in the world.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's great. I mean, so it seems like, because I kind of got that vibe, but listening to the record, it seems kind of very personal. It seems like it's not so far out, like in the world of like kind of creating these characters and so forth. It seems a little bit more like real.
That's probably good.
Okay. Yeah. No. But it's
that sounds 100% right.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we're gonna move on to another song. I'm gonna skip Breakdown.
Yeah.
Not because it's a bad song.
I hear you.
Don't have anything for it. But this one's actually great. Listen to Her Heart is next.
Yeah.
Now, all right. So what I have here is that it's a poppy little number, kind of in the vein of the Byrds or Beatles. Definitely has that feel to it. So Tom Petty shares this story in the book about having Elvis Costello and the Attractions open for the Heartbreakers at the Riviera Theater back in '77.
Mm-hmm.
And Elvis Costello admitted in an interview that he wrote the end of Radio directly from this song. He basically stole the ending of this song to copy for Radio.
Wow.
So now I know your band has played with many other memorable and influential acts throughout the years, but do you either know or suspect that your band may have had a direct influence on any of the bands that you've played with?
There was a band once that covered one of our songs, and the guy sent me like a cassette of it. Set You Free. That was cool. And they
Which
did.
band was that?
They're called Dude Japan. I didn't know who they were. It's like a guy who has his own record label, and I don't know how he found us, or maybe he was at a show, or somehow he said he sent it to me, which was cool.
Okay.
Although back in the early days, like we had our actual address on things. Yeah. Then we shifted to a PO box. I don't know.
The only way. There were no websites. Nobody could ever. You couldn't get. Right. No one could reach you. It was either that or your phone number. So.
Yeah.
Or both sometimes, yeah.
Both, yeah, definitely.
And who had the money to pitch in for a PO box, really? You know, I mean, that's a big step up.
Did eventually have the PO box, but at first it wasn't even it was like a dorm Rachel was working in, right? It was like an NYU graduate dorm, I think. Was our
But it is interesting. I don't know. See, I don't even know that we would know if someone was influenced by us.
There actually have been a few people like. I wish I could think of it. There was someone who wrote a song called Sleepyhead that was inspired by us.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was. It wasn't like a big band.
Right. Huh. That's interesting. Well, that's cool though. I mean, that's so like complimentary, huh? That's like to have that kind of legacy of people being influenced by your band.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
That's the purpose of the next album is that once everybody hears this, they'll be like, we got to record this and we got to work with like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. You never know. I mean, you never know what it's going to hit and how.
Right.
Very true.
Yeah. Listen to Her Heart is one of those songs that Derek and Rachel and I realized, hey, let's try that song. And it was when we were first like figuring out how to sing the 3-part harmony stuff. And it was like a good learning tool. Like this is a great song to kind of practice that. So, we bust that song out at parties and stuff. We always had to bring our guitars around.
Yeah, I got to say, that's probably like if we were ever asked on the spot to do a cover, like I think we could do that one with no rehearsal.
Yeah, if we were all, Derek's not in our house right now, but if we were all in the same room, I pull out my guitar and we could play that song for you.
I know, yeah.
Beginning to end with all the harmonies and everything.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Do you know how to play all of these songs?
Well, no, but we have played. It's funny. In the early days, we would play "Here Comes My Girl" really poorly, and but it was fun to play. And during the pandemic, Mike Campbell started making all these videos on Instagram. Like his wife would film him, and he'd pull out some guitar. Oh, this is the 59 Les Paul, or he's got this crazy guitar that's a drum machine built in, and sometimes he'll just be like, "I'm going to show you guys how to play this Tom Petty song," or he'll explain, So this one day he made a whole video of how to play "Here Comes My Girl," and I was like, "Oh my God, did I play this wrong?" And I've saved that video. I have it saved on my iPad, and I'm going to sit down and like figure out exactly, because he plays like. He is a really, really, really good guitar player. Like he does all these really interesting chord voicings and things that are kind of hard to figure out sometimes. Some aren't. Like, Listen to Her Heart's not that hard to figure out if you sit there and listen to it. But
sure.
I think so. We what's the song that we were playing that we never played live? It's from Full Moon Fever. It's not one of the popular songs. I have to look it up.
Wait, not Depending on You?
Depending on You. Yeah. Depending on You. And then there was another like weird, obscure, like unreleased Tom Petty song that I also can't remember the name of that I saw in the documentary. Remember I sent you guys a link to it?
But I don't.
I tried to look that up before this interview and I couldn't actually find it.
Okay.
Yeah, Here Comes My Girl. Sometimes I play The Waiting just by myself. I was just like trying to practice it, but I do think a lot of these songs would be songs we could, with some work, could pull them off.
Okay. I just didn't know if you had them already kind of like
tried Refugee yet, because it's got the Wurlitzer.
Yeah, exactly.
Like featured prominently. That could be
also, it's kind of hard to pull that off the Hammond. That's why we need another. You need both. You need like
the Hammond too. Sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I just didn't know if like you seem obviously like you're such fans of the music, and obviously you've mentioned how like you do play some of these. It might be something that was already kind of in your repertoire of some sort.
Yeah, I think Depending on You, we were going to play at a show, and then the show got canceled or something. It's not on the greatest hits album, but it is another.
I know. That's a great song.
You got lucky. I mean, that one's like in my DNA that I can bust that one out.
You played that at one of your parties or something.
Yeah, I like, and that one's fun to play because it's sort of like it reminds me of being a kid again. I can envision this, it just brings me back to that whole thing. So it doesn't matter, you're just strumming an acoustic guitar and singing, but in my mind, I'm like,
yeah, we do that, but not with the synths and everything. But
yeah, just acoustic, and it sounds great. I don't think he's ever done an acoustic. He should do an acoustic version. He should have. I don't know if he ever recorded one.
Yeah, I don't know. You might have to get that latest box set anthology of his. That's kind of has a lot of stuff on it that maybe you're not too familiar or that wasn't put on any official.
There's so much good stuff on that.
Yeah. Okay. I imagine there's a lot of that too, like kind of like demo recordings and like acoustic solo stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great.
I would love to play The Waiting sometime, but that is a hard, like that's hard on the harder side. And I feel like we would have to really nail it, or else it wouldn't be like, what would be the point,
I don't know. I mean, like, would you do it kind of like traditionally, like kind of like try to keep true to the original, or make your own version of it?
I think I'd want to just do that. Like, I wouldn't want to record it. I just want to do it live. It'd be a fun song, like last song of the set, or if you got an encore or something.
Yeah, sure. It's a great song. Speaking of great songs, let's move on to another one. Let's move on to Refugee.
Yeah. Great song.
All right. So it is a great song. Little weird. I mean, like as far as like his catalog is concerned, I mean, like this has kind of got a strange feel to it. Like it doesn't seem so obviously poppy. I mean, it has hooks in it, but it's just like it's got a weird vibe, doesn't it?
Does, yeah. And the lyrics are, like somewhere, somehow, somebody must have kicked you around some. Even just that whole "you don't have to live like a refugee" that's an intense thought.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it is a weird song. I mean, it is like what a weird song to become like a humongous hit song too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they pushed that one somehow, because I know that like, didn't they record that one like 200 times?
Maybe.
Ridiculous. I don't know if it's that one, but they hated it because they just like could never nail it.
Don't Do Me Like That was the first single from Damn the Torpedoes, but I guess you can sort of see why, but it's not as big as Refugee, probably in the grand scheme of his.
Yeah, no, I think Refugee was a bigger hit. Let me see what I have here, because I think I have something that touches on what you were saying, Derek. The main parts of the song, musically, were introduced to Tom by Mike Campbell, so he wrote the majority of the song. Tom says that the song came very easily lyrically, just sitting with the demo, but he and Mike both have been quoted saying the actual recording of that song was very difficult and tedious. So much so that Mike has said that this was the first and only time he has ever walked out of the studio and left town for 2 days.
Wow.
Oh,
that's heavy. Yikes.
Yeah. I know, right? I mean, so I'm not sure exactly like what the scenario was. It's like as far as like how many times they tried to record it, but obviously they were having like a lot of difficulty with it. So what has been one of your most difficult songs to record, which ultimately ended satisfyingly?
I don't know. This is not as grand as that, but Can You Leave the Light On is so like Fort Misery and Can You Leave the Light On, and maybe a couple of others are like heavy lyric. There's a couple of songs that are more heavy lyrically, and Can You Leave the Light On was also one of the first songs we recorded, and there was no arguing really about this, other than John Lupfer, the producer, and I kind of going back and forth with like, he's basically right about everything when we're not sure about things, but there was something about Can You Leave the Light On. I knew it was like one of the best songs on the record and one of the most intense songs, and the big, like a hard hitting song, maybe like Refugee a little bit. And it has a really great electric guitar sound, the basic track, which is my jazz master through a matchless amp that they had in the studio. I'm pretty sure was what it was. And I think at some point I kept thinking it needs an acoustic somewhere. And I wanted to try an acoustic in a different tuning. And so I went for a session. It might've been just me and the producer and the engineers. And it just didn't really work. And then John, our producer, was like, why don't you just tune it normally? Put the capo on the same place you had it on for the basic track for the electric guitar, And meanwhile, he's not quite, I don't quite think he's seeing why I'm not happy with this song yet. Cause he was, I think it might be his favorite one. I know it's one of his favorite songs on the record. And so I finally was like, okay, yes, this open tuning's not working. It's not sounding like I wanted it to sound. So I went in and just started basically playing the same electric part on my acoustic or on his acoustic or some acoustic. And what John, the producer, realizes, like, oh my goodness, we took the electric guitar entirely out of the entire second verse and just let the acoustic be there. And that electric guitar sound is really great, but it's also really intense. And your ear just needed a break from it. And so when the second and the third verse of that song was already just bass and piano, this really beautiful, big, like Yamaha grand piano that sounds good. And so the song was like really, 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 really heavy through the chorus. And then bass, piano, and Rachel's beautiful singing. But what it needed this other open space at the beginning. And so when he finally was like, oh my goodness, I'm taking the electric out for that, we were like, oh, this is it. So we were finally like, this may have been just me and John who were like so invested in this, right. But we were very, very pleased with, because there was not like headbutting would not be the right word, but there was definitely some like, it's not working.
Right. Not working. So much so that you were like maybe even contemplating like, I'm going to shit can the song if we can't figure this out.
I didn't know what to do. I was going to be really disappointed because I thought like this is like one of the centerpieces of the album.
Yeah.
And that thing I think allowed it to really truly be that.
That's so brilliant. Like just a little thing like that, a little tweak can make all the difference.
Yeah. And it was really, honestly, in the big sense of it, was like taking something out and like replacing it with something that was less. So it's not always like adding more. That took us some time to realize that. That's something we have mostly internalized now.
Yeah, sure. Wow.
Space can be really important.
Mm-hmm. Very, very effective. Cool, man. I like that story. I'm not gonna have to listen to that song again. I mean, I've listened to it obviously the past couple of weeks, but it's I haven't really noticed that type of detail to it.
Yep.
So very cool.
Now you'll notice it because you'll hear it's the first verse kind of goes right into the second verse, but that's a big change there.
Cool. All right. Well, I will definitely stay tuned for that. You mentioned "Don't Do Me Like That." I don't want to do that song.
Fine, yeah.
It's a little too Jay Giles band for me.
Totally.
The only quote, actually, the only like thing I know about that song was actually that he wanted to give this song to the Jay Giles band.
Funny, I didn't know. I could totally see that.
Man, Peter Wolf needs to cover that right now. Like he's still in town. He should totally record a cover of that.
The only thing I want to point out about like I need to know and "Don't Do Me Like That." I was timing it today. I need to know the chorus. The first chorus of that song starts 24 seconds into the song, and "Don't Do Me Like That." The first chorus starts 33 seconds into the song. So there is like the famous quote, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus," which is in the Tom Petty documentary. There is something to be said for that sometimes. Like,
oh, well, you know what? That's actually pretty cool because I've made that observation because I've been doing this long enough and talking about enough records that I would typically like play the music for you. And so, you know, I can't play too much of it. So I usually only play about 30 seconds. And I'm just like, oh, this song hits the chorus by the 30-second mark.
Yep.
And that's like a lot of the songs. Like I remember doing that specifically with a Kinks record.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a very common theme, I think, especially with pop songs.
Yep.
You know what I just noticed as you're talking, like I'm just reading all the songs on the greatest hits, and every single one, when I read it, I can hear the chorus literally just from the title.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what sticks out the most.
Yeah. But it's just like, oh my God, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it probably helps that the title is typically the chorus.
I know, but this is like, it's like I can hear the melody and it's just like I don't have to hear the song. Like you could tell me like, oh, let's talk about the waiting. I'm like, oh yeah, I can hear it in my head right now. Just like instantly.
Yep.
Can hear into your neural synapses.
I hear you, man. All right. Well, look, so I didn't want to do that one. But what about Even the Losers?
Yeah. Beautiful song.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think we may have already touched on this.
We talked about it a little bit, like we were talking about the guitar playing, but the lyrics, it couldn't have been that easy to forget about me. That line that just comes so soon in the beginning of the song, like you just like thinking this song is this big positive thing, and then it's like a dagger, like I was like, that's even. We're talking about even the losers, right?
Even the losers, yep.
Worried I'm going to get that is. Oh, and it's also for me like. A song like Breakdown, or like there's some other songs we might get to where the kind of his persona is like a little bit cocky, and then but he can also do the like the other side,
the
like,
sensitive side, the kind of more
I'm the one who's getting screwed by somebody or getting hurt by somebody.
Yeah.
That's and that's why it like how many people listen to that song and go, I'm a loser. Thank you for singing this song that makes me feel better about that. I'm seriously, it's like there's so many people who,
there are so many people that don't think highly of themselves.
Right.
And it's just like that expression, even a dog gets a warm side of the sidewalk every now and then, you have like this one opportunity where, it seems like someone is looking out for you, even if it's fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
So like this song, let's see. So Tom said that he had everything to this song done except for the chorus. And he had no words for the chorus, but boldly declared that he was ready to cut it anyway. And then divine intervention stepped in.
Sometimes you need the deadline.
Yeah. Well, and he just had that. I don't think he had the idea that he must have thought that it was going to come to him while recording it, but the fact that it did is pretty astounding.
Yeah,
especially with the way that it ended up. I mean, this is one of those songs, so
That's
has
terrifying.
there ever been a moment where you took a wild chance and had it pay off?
Honestly, I think when we went in the studio to record Can You Leave the Light On, and
the first batch of songs,
first batch of that, right, and we're like, all right, we're going to play a Hammond B3 organ with the Leslie speaker, and I've never played it, and I know sort of like what it's supposed to do, and I'm like, okay, I think it speeds up here and slows down here, and the producer's like, just don't touch any of the settings, don't mess with the drawbars, and I'm like, okay, but I want to mess with the speaker because I want to, so like I've I'm not a keyboardist, but like I was like, okay, I want it to sound like this and have this little flourish, and we're recording, and that's kind of for me a little terrifying when you're recording and you don't really know what you're doing and you're just putting yourself out there, but I think it turned out okay.
Definitely more than okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about the studio that we record at Q Division Studios in Boston, which is just it's just an amazing place. It's like super pro in the sense that like if you need something,
Mellotron.
A Mellotron, exactly. This needs a Mellotron, or I need a 12-string, and boom, there's like a beautiful Rickenbacker 12-string,
Yeah.
But it's also, and the engineers are amazing, like super, super professional and quick, but they are also so chill, and it's just like, it's just a super creative vibe in there. So there are many times recording this record where things were not going exactly the way we wanted to. We thought we had the vocal harmonies worked out, and we get in there and all of a sudden we realize, well, Derek and Rachel are in unison on that chord, and Chris and Derek are in unison on that. And we're like, oh my God, but we felt never, you feel the little twinge of discouragement, but they're not enough that there were a lot of times where we're like, okay, we're going to figure this out. We're going to do it. We get like, and we did.
There was a piano.
we sat we'd be like, okay, give us 10 minutes to sit at the piano. We'll try to
rewrite them.
And, and they were helpful too, but,
Well, so how long did it take? How long did this record take you to record?
Well, how many days of recording would be interesting versus how many years to be done? Because we did them in batches of 4 songs.
Okay.
And in general, I think we'd go in for 4 songs and do 2 days of basics. And then we'd do lots of half days and shorter amounts of time to get all the overdubs. And
Oh, okay, right.
We spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the one thing about being in a band when we all have jobs. Like we frankly spent a fair amount of money too, but it totally was worth it to us. So I just was like, we're at this point in our lives. We're so happy with these songs. We are going to go into like the best studio, and we're gonna go there until it sounds good, and then we're gonna have it mastered by like one of the best mastering engine. Like, to me, it was like, I just didn't want to go halfway on it. So we tried to be as ready as we could when we went in there to not waste time. But we're not, on the flip side, the same thing. We all have normal jobs, so we weren't always like super efficient, but
right. No, actually, that sort of goes back to the question of, did we ever go in and kind of think like, let's just take a stab at it and then be happy with the results? And so for me, that is definitely the drum breakdown part in the song Without You, that we were practicing that song, and that again was one of the older songs, but the two kind of drum fills where nothing else is going on, I don't know, just in my mind, it was one thing, and I would count it one way, and Chris would count it another way, and Derek probably pulled his hair out a few times.
It is weird. It's a weird part.
But here's the real thing. So then I remember setting up, knowing we were going to do that song, and just thinking, what is going to happen when we get to that part?
I mean, it's a little bit of studio magic you can do, but for that type of thing.
No magic.
I know. No, it's for that type of thing.
I'm talking. So here's the thing. So we played it several times, as blissfully you get to do in the studio. And I just remembered, because really, I think this is true for every Sleepyhead album, the drums are always start to finish one take. So like all the pressure's on for the drums.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
During getting the basics. And I remember when we got through a take of that song, it definitely took a number of times. And I just remember thinking each drum fill part worked. Like, we gotta stop. So, and I'm totally happy with it. I think it's really interesting. I will admit it is extremely hard to replicate live. And so if we're gonna have that song in the set, I have to go down to the basement and just come up with a way to play it that I'm going to be able to do consistently, because they have to come in back with me. And there have been many times in practice, and maybe even a show or two, where I'm doing the crazy fill, and I'm sure they're just looking desperately at me like, when is he going to go hit the cymbal? So anyway, but I'm happy with how it sounds on the recording, and the set is more stressful if that song is in it.
Sure. Yeah, it seems like you've damned yourself a little bit.
Are we playing that next week in New York? No, okay.
No.
Where are you playing in New York?
It's called Berlin, or Berlin under A, I think officially, but it is on the corner of Avenue A and 2nd Street, which is a half a block from the apartment that Rachel and I lived in for 10 plus years. So it's the bar that we used to hang out at. It has this basement room now that they didn't have when we lived in New York. It's small. It's great though. The people are great. The sound guy's great. We played there in February and it was really fun. So hopefully it'll be a good show.
Okay, cool. And when is that exactly?
It's Saturday the
27th.
Saturday, August
27th. Okay, so next weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we have a Boston show Saturday, September 17th, which is just getting ironed out, but is confirmed. And that's in Rosendale at the Square Root.
Cool. Okay. That's just some stuff that I'd like to make sure that I mention later on.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep on moving on. Let's see. What do we got for Here Comes My Girl?
Oh yeah. That's the one we were talking about with the trying to learn how to play the guitar parts that I haven't quite figured out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a weird little song. I mean, so Tom, this is the one where he kind of like settled on, like he had a hard time with the lyrics and settled on the just talking verse.
Yeah.
Right.
Which not everybody could pull off for sure, but he pulled it off in that song. That song has that like I mean, you can't get more universal than a song that, like, the only thing that really matters in your life is your partner in love, right? It's like, it's a little sappy in a way, but I mean, maybe that is true. You know?
Oh, I'm sure it is. I mean, like, especially like the way that it's that the song is laid out, and like the way that that chorus comes in, and it's just so grand and
Yeah.
shimmering.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of as like a tribute to like any like female partner that, you know, like every guy has had that feeling where they see that woman that they've loved and just been completely like knocked out by it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that this song kind of captures that.
Yeah, totally. And I make that song makes me think of like people who don't have like a rewarding job, or, you know, or like, or don't, or aren't healthy, right? Like have some health issue, or like life is really hard, but have this one thing where when you go home at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I got at least this is really more important than any of that other stuff. And I just think he's writing that song for people, like maybe for himself, but for everyone who's in that situation, which is a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, sure.
It's really gorgeous. It's like you can have this. You don't need money. You just need this one thing.
Right. And if you have that one thing, you're good. You're set.
I can the line, I can tell the whole wide world to shove it. That's just best.
Yep. I talked about this song before, actually, because a friend of mine, William Russell Wallace, came to visit me, and we talked about Damn the Torpedoes, and that was the line that he loves, because there's not enough times in the you know, musical canon of history where a singer can get it, like, effectively, you know, say shove it in a song.
Right.
So this song, sample lyrics go, yeah, I just catch myself wandering, waiting, worrying about some silly little things that don't add up to nothing.
Yeah.
So you ever find yourselves stuck on these useless things that you think about?
Yes, I do.
I don't.
Rachel doesn't as much.
No?
See,
that's very strange for me to hear from a married mother.
I don't know. I just think life is short, and it's not worth wasting energy worrying about wasteful things. I think from a young age, I never wanted to feel the emotion of regret, and I think wasting time is something to regret. So it's just not worth it, and it doesn't help. So don't do it.
I agree with you, and I
have to work harder to get to that sentiment, but I mostly am able to.
Okay, wait. So the dynamic here is that Rachel is the carefree one, and you do most of the worrying for the family, huh?
Certain areas, I think that.
Yeah.
I've never seen Rachel worried. Let's just put it that way.
That's great. Now
I'm only saying that the worrying for both of them.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm saying that from my own experience, because I'm married and have children as well, and my wife does the worrying for everybody. And it's sad, because like I don't want her to worry, but that's just the way her brain works. You know, it's just like it's partially, I think, a maternal instinct to obviously be concerned with everyone's feelings and everyone's well-being. But it's from that experience with my wife, I'm just like, God, like, mothers have it really hard.
The love is big. The big feels, for sure, yeah. Part of motherhood.
Can I just say that the talking part of this song makes it impossible to ever cover?
I agree.
Anybody else doing it, you just can't do it.
Yeah, it is hard.
It just sounds stupid. It's like it's so it's a little bit like, I don't know why he did that, because it's never going to be covered, you know. The other thing is, there is another song, Johnny Paycheck, Take This Job and Shove It, that says it pretty well. So,
there you go. Yeah, that's a good one.
Anyway. I was thinking with the worrying thing, since this has already come up during the recording of this record, Derek lost his wife, Rachel lost her younger sister, and I lost my father. So, and we all worried about, I mean, you can't not worry. They all took cancer too, so they were like, you know,
okay,
it was
slow and
I don't know if that
drawn out.
I mean, yeah. So, but it is again. It's like that's sadly that's life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And so well, I'm sorry for all of your losses. I mean, I know kind of what that's like. I mean, my wife actually just lost her father as well this March.
Sorry. Yeah.
So that's kind of fresh, and it's yeah, it's not easy to deal with. And so I think that kind of speaks to this song a little bit as far as this, like what you were saying is that chorus coming in is just like you need that one thing. And then if you have that rock to kind of like, kind of make things all right, that's kind of all you really need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think making this music has helped the three of like it's a very cathartic joyful thing, and it and it really, I think, helped us get through that. And also the pandemic was miserable, especially the three of us being teachers, but
sure.
this music, I my hope is that now that it's getting out to other people, is that maybe it will bring the similar kind of feelings to other people, like sort of
sure. Yeah, I would imagine it will. Yeah,
of human condition, which I think Here Comes My Girl also does.
Yeah, great. What you actually answered my question. I didn't even have to ask it. That was exactly what I was getting at with this song. So let's move on to the next song, The Waiting.
Yeah, it's the hardest part.
It is the hardest part, but the weird thing is that all I have about this song is a fact about it, which is that so the story goes that that this song, particularly the chorus, was inspired by a quote from Janis Joplin.
Oh, wow.
Along the lines of how she loved to be on stage and everything else is just waiting.
Huh.
So, I mean, so I no question for you guys on this song, but that's just one of the interesting facts that I was able to pull out of it.
Huh, that's cool. I mean, that, like, whenever we have a show, I'm always like, I'm probably the most anxious of the three of us about, like, so maybe now I see that the way, like, I just want to, like, get started. Let's get this thing started here.
Well, I think it was because she loved to be on stage. She loved to perform. So it's just like all the rest of the time of the day where you're not performing is just waiting.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think that's what kind of inspired him to kind of start with this. And then, so I guess he started with the chorus because then he basically wrote the rest of the song backwards from that point.
That makes a lot of sense.
So he had to come up with all like the verses after that.
That's cool.
Yeah. Pretty interesting.
That's very interesting. I never knew that. That's great.
All right. So you want to just do a couple of facts about some of the songs? Because I have another great one that really kind of blew my mind.
About this song, about a different song.
About a different song.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Let's hear it.
Don't Come Around Here No More.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Now this is actually verbatim. I've taken this from Wikipedia. The original inspiration was a romantic encounter that producer David A. Stewart of Eurythmics.
Yeah.
And a romantic encounter that he had with Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac.
Wow.
I know, right? She gets around, man.
Yeah,
that's. I've been doing a lot of history, a lot of reading about bands, and she seems to show up everywhere.
She does for sure.
So, on the Howard Stern show, Stewart explained that the title's phrase was actually uttered by Nicks. She had broken up with Eagles singer and guitarist Joe Walsh the night before and invited Stewart to her place for a party after an early Eurythmics show in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Stewart did not know who she was at the time, but went anyway. Says a lot about him.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
When the partygoers all disappeared to a bathroom for a couple of hours to snort cocaine, he decided to go upstairs to bed. He woke up at 5 a.m. to find Nicks in his room trying on Victorian clothing and described the entire scenario as very much reminiscent of Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, wow.
Later that morning, when Walsh came by to find Nicks, Stewart heard Nicks throw Walsh out, saying, "Don't come around here no more."
Wow. I love that story.
I like the song even more now. That's really good.
Yeah, right. And like everything ties into it, like the video, like
And
whole
the
feel of it.
crazy synths throughout it that are like sort of warbling away in a weird way.
Right. And I didn't realize, I mean, I think I put this together a little while ago doing some research on Tom Petty, but I didn't realize that what's his name? Dave Thomas?
Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart was the co-writer of the song.
Cool.
Yeah, I read that in his biography. I was a little surprised at that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I guess it caused a rift in the band because they were using a drum machine. It sounds completely different from everything else that he's ever done. And the band is like, what the hell is this shit that we're doing? Like,
right. And I guess being in the 80s.
And he was doing a solo album, I think. He was trying to get a solo album happening. I don't know if this is on. Yeah.
Tom Petty?
Yeah, because he didn't want to. He wanted to do separate from the Heartbreakers.
Okay.
I think Rick Rubin wanted him to just do it. I don't know if it was the other guy. Who's the ELO guy?
Full Moon Fever is
Jeff Lynne.
Jeff Lynne, I think.
Yeah. Which they ultimately ended up doing. I mean, but that was a few years afterwards.
Yeah.
Full Moon Fever comes out in 1989, whereas this song came out in 85.
Yeah.
So they eventually.
I didn't like it when it came out.
Full Moon Fever?
No, that it was a little. Yeah, I mean, it was so commercial. Every day
it was the same for me.
All you could hear.
It was a pretty poppy album.
I appreciate it now a lot more. But
I love it now. But back then, I'm like, this is not as cool as The Cure, and
exactly. That's where my mind was at for that.
Sure. Well, you guys were still pretty punk rock back then in the 80s, right?
My mind, I was. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's all you really need.
This was pretty slick back. When this came out, this is like the
guitar coming away. Yeah, it was cool though.
Videos. I mean, the video was super cool, and that sort of I think drew everybody into. But
yeah, it certainly did for me. I was pretty young actually when this came out, so I remember being like a very young kid and just being like, "This is such a cool, crazy video! Like, what is going on here?" And like even the music itself, it's just like. It didn't sound like anything else that was around at that time,
Right.
All right. Well, I think that was fun to tell that.
That's a
let's see. Next song is "I Won't Back Down."
Yeah.
All right. So now we're into the Full Moon Fever era.
Yeah.
Because even on this album, it's just like there's kind of a cluster of songs from that album on this.
Yeah. Which was his biggest album, so not surprising, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, well, Damn the Torpedoes and Full Moon Fever, those are the two big clusters on this record. You got a bunch of songs from each of those records. So I Won't Back Down, despite all the political connotations of this song.
Yeah.
Here's a funny little anecdote from Tom.
Yeah.
He says, quote, at the session, George Harrison sang and played the guitar. I had a terrible cold that day, and George went to the store and bought a ginger root, boiled it, and had me stick my head in the pot to get the ginger steam to open up my sinuses. And then I ran in and did the take.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it worked, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah.
The ginger is powerful.
Yes, I know. My wife swears by it. She eats it like raw, basically.
Tastes good too. So it's no loss there.
Right. And so my question for you is any wild natural remedies you use to help in your performance?
Well, yes. So before shows in the winter, if we have colds, Derek and I have had this little elixir that I don't remember where I learned of it. But you will wash 2 lemons because the skin is going to be in the water. You cut them in half, squeeze them, put them in. So 2 lemons cut in half in 2 cups of water. And you boil that for a while. Then you strain it and add so much honey, and then you drink it, and it really helps.
So it's like a hot lemonade kind of.
Yes.
Interesting.
It teaches you how much sugar is in lemonade because you have to put so much lemon before you could really drink it. But I think the honey is good. It's good. Stand by that.
So now this is specifically for singing.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and like, because I feel like there's something that connects here as far as like natural remedies, and then like the theme, or at least the the idea of where the title for the new album came from, New Alchemy, right?
Sure. Yeah.
As you were saying, it's kind of like a old school, was it, or? What?
No, it was more like a farm.
It was a farm. Okay, just practicing sustainable practices.
Yep.
So are you like naturopaths in a sense? I mean, are you into the natural remedies or?
Not too much.
Not too much, no?
No, not. not me.
I mean, we're not opposed to them, but we also like modern medicine. I'd say whatever works.
I mean, we work. I feel like I have good health insurance through my job, so I'm like, I'm going to take all the pills that I know work for all the bad things that don't work on me.
Right.
But
sure,
natural stuff. I try to eat healthy.
Yeah, of course.
I used to think I was a hippie, but not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Like I think I'd be more crunchy, but then I'm like, I do the right things. You compost, you do all the, all the things.
Sure.
Then is it enough?
Got to keep trying.
It's never enough.
Yeah, well, my wife is a mystic, so she's into all those weird things. Like, so she actually can make like elderberry syrup. You ever hear of that?
No. What's it good for?
It's good for like everything, basically.
Everything.
Oh.
Yeah, like it actually kind of looks and almost tastes like Dimetap. But it's all natural. It comes from berries. You kind of like just simmer it down into like a kind of a syrup. And it tastes okay. Doesn't taste too funky. Fairly sweet. And it's just kind of good for anything. What's another good
my girlfriend one? She makes when I'm sick, she'll make me like a turmeric milk. So it's hot turmeric. Like oat milk, usually turmeric sort of distilled, and then with a little bit of salt too.
Yes, my wife is familiar with that one. Okay. And then which is the other crazy one? Fire cider.
I don't think I've had that. Is that like apple cider vinegar or something?
Kind of. It's quite a dangerous concoction. It's like mostly vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and then like what's in there? I know there's ginger in there, so it's because it's spicy. It's like it's a really spicy drink, and that thing's supposed to like really knock everything out of your system too, as far as like if you're ill, which I'd imagine it just kind of makes me ill. I don't think it makes me that much better.
Ginger, garlic, onion,
different way. It takes over the other illness.
Yeah. It masks it, so you don't think about how sick you are. You just thinking about what's destroying your stomach.
Wow. Well, I mean, I remember one time driving somewhere, and this was after all our family members had died of cancer. And it was just something on NPR where this doctor was talking about the fact that if we really focused on what we ate, it's almost like the most important thing we can do on the societal level. Right. To bring cancer rates down. Doesn't work on the individual level, but she just had so much information and so many statistics about the bad impacts of what many people eat all the time, and conversely, the amazing positive impacts of certain foods. And I remember listening to her and thinking, it like jogged my memory way back when I was in college, reading some little magazine article about blueberries. And I remember this one quote came from a doctor in it who said, if there's one thing everyone could do, eat a cup of blueberries every day, your entire life. And at that time, they were trying to figure out, could you put blueberries in ground beef and like sneak them into burgers basically without affecting the flavor? So I hope, as the years go by, that we will figure that out. Again, at the societal level, some like no-brainer dummy things like, yes, get your cup of blueberries in, everybody.
No, I think you're right. And I think that whatever this was that you were listening to has a lot of validity. I'm not going to say it's completely accurate because obviously, I don't want to get into this argument with people, but I think, the way that you live, your lifestyle, the food that you eat, the choices that you make as far as like what you put in your body is it has to affect your health. I mean, so I'm on board with that.
So we're all a little crunchy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I love blueberries, so I don't have a problem with it.
Me neither. I down them every day anyway. All right, let's move on. You know what? I've only got a couple more for you.
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised that we got through all these. I was expecting just to skip some. So next song is "Running Down a Dream."
Yeah.
Okay, another great fact that I don't have a question for, but so this is another great song. I definitely love this one. One interesting thing, according to Tom, that amazed him was that Mike Campbell did the guitar solo in one take.
Wow. In
his tiny studio house with only Tom and Jeff Lynne present to witness.
Wow.
Wow.
Yep. And so that's why the song runs a little long, because he was just on such a roll that they just kind of let him go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the feeling just from the times I've seen them that the band really likes playing that song.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that like riff kind of like grabs the audience, I think, but every time I've seen them play that song, it's just been like really amped up version of it.
Sure. Well, I imagine that, it's because it's such a popular song as well.
Right.
I have a feeling you must play off your audience as well, right?
Yeah.
You know what songs kind of hit your audience a little bit more so than others?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing for us, since we haven't put out a record in 8 years, is that when we played in February, we played 2 shows in February, one in Boston, one in New York, where we basically have our people who are going to come see us that we can count on. But that was our first show since the pandemic. So we hadn't played in a couple of years. So I knew we weren't going to be able to get the record out by then because we still had a lot of stuff to figure out. So we released 2 songs on our Bandcamp only, like not on Spotify or anything. One of them was Without You. The other one was Some, one of Derek Pulitzer masterpieces. And it was so fun to play the shows and people knew those 2 songs. So it was a noticeable difference because we were mostly playing all the new songs that nobody had heard yet.
Right.
And then we played, this is one of the songs we put out on Bandcamp last week. And like a bunch of people would clap and we were like, wow, that's cool. So I'm hoping that the next couple from now on, we'll be playing these songs, but people will actually have heard them. So
yeah. And now what about mixing up some of the old catalog? I mean, are you still playing, or you will be playing some of the old songs?
Not too much.
Not too much. I'm not interested in doing that. I am so much more smitten with the new stuff. And I know lots of artists say that, but like, if there are people who want to hear older songs, I mean, I think there's definitely some good older songs. And like, if someone said to me like, oh, can you play this at the next show? We'd figure out, we'd bust it out,
Sure.
Sometimes my son is like, you got to play that song. People like that song, but I think our mind is so in the present and future that we have with Derek a lot. Like Derek did learn a lot of our older songs when we first started playing, and we play shows and play a lot of the older ones. So I don't know, probably, at some point we'll throw a few in, but I think right now we just have 2 shows coming up, and I hope next spring and summer we can play a lot more, and maybe we'll like to mix it up. We also really like to play covers live, and so that takes up a couple slots in the set sometimes too.
Okay.
It sounds kind of like we're doing it for ourselves, but
well, you are.
Yeah,
you have to be.
Newer songs are so much better. I think the audiences will come along when they hear them. So.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you have to do it for yourself first.
Yeah.
If we ever get to make a greatest hits album, then we'll pick the old ones that are worth keeping.
I don't think we're really a greatest hits kind of band. I think we need to. The folk for us, I want to make a record that sounds like a greatest hits album, like where every song is good.
Sure. Well, it's not like out of the realm of possibility. I mean, you already have had a reissue where you reissued the 2 records off of Homestead, right?
Yep.
So I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was happy to see that be available. That's good.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to the last song for the evening.
Yep.
I'm sorry if I've missed anything that any of you guys
we have
really like.
All good.
Okay. So Free Fallin' is the last song.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So Derek and I were talking about how I think at the time we were like, oh, this is too commercial, too.
Yeah. And
I think I appreciate it a lot more now, and also appreciate the lyrics are really good too. Like there is a little bit of an edge to the lyrics that I don't think I really picked up on so much, or I wasn't really listening at the time.
Yeah. I think it was shrouded too much with the whole pop sensibility thing, and this being literally his most famous song.
Right.
So obviously it was everywhere when it came out, and it was kind of like overkill. It's definitely very like kind of saccharine and sweet. Like that chorus is it just has a tendency to get stuck, and you just hate yourself for it getting stuck in your head,
Yeah. The line for me is just the simple little line, loves horses. That is just a harsh line. That it's just like it's that there's a critique of the person he's singing about in that line. Like, because it's sort of like, at first she's a good girl, like loves her mama, all that stuff, like
Right. Loves Jesus.
Jesus in America too. But then loves horses. It's kind of like it's looking down. I think it's looking down on the person when he gets to that part. And so I never think I really picked up on that so much at the time. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's like but no, I think that's it, right? He's trying to get away. I'm gone. I'm like,
right. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like I didn't really like read the read the lyrics for the song as I was listening to it.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean there's definitely stuff that's there. And again, it's just part of his gift to just be able to create a song that is kind of so universal. It kind of touches a lot of people in a number of different ways, regardless of what his intention was.
Yeah.
So but Free Fallen, like I said, that this is grouped into that, it's a little cluster on this record of like all the songs from Full Moon Fever.
Yep.
And so now that we're into the Full Moon Fever portion of this album, it came to my attention that Jeff Lynne was all over this record. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so he was from co-writing to producing to performing on it.
Yeah.
And Tom spoke very highly of him and the type of influence working with him had on him from that point forth.
Yeah.
So my question to you guys is there anyone in Sleepyhead's world that you've worked with or have been or has been a form of a guiding light? Mentor?
Yeah. So we've been very lucky to work with some really great producers over the years, Michael Denny, Martin Beasy. But the one we're working with now, John Luffer, who did this record, like, I can't wait to make another record with him. He just, right now, he just brings out the very best in us. We have some other friends who help us, like with like more like, how do you just music business type of decisions. Our friend Lyle, who runs our publishing company, and he's just a really good friend. And when I don't know what the heck we're supposed to be doing, how do we get this link? He helps with that. But for musically, I would say it's John Lupfer. We're pretty self-sufficient, the three of us, but yeah.
Yeah. Derek, Rachel, do you have anything to add? Do you have I mean, I'm sure that John is it. I mean, obviously he's a great producer and has done a great job on this new album.
Well, I think for me, it goes way back to the beginning because there were not a lot of female drummers in the 90s. And so I would say, having seen Yola Tango and Georgia Hubley playing drums and the band Christmas with Liz Cox, the Providence connection, or those years, I think that was important for me. I'm very comfortable just trying things and doing things, but a couple of years in, I mean, it was just noticeable. Like, we'd go on tour and I would just be the only female
right.
in many environments, hours and hours and weeks and weeks. And it was kind of interesting. So I think that was good for me to see these amazing other female drummers and just sort of confirm, like, yes, this isn't a normal thing to do. Of course, yes, I will.
Right.
Sure. So I think that was important, and they are both so talented. So watching them is fun. And then, I feel like I at any show, there's always some part of it where I just zero in on the drummer. Like, Chris and I went and saw Big Thief recently, and I love watching the drummer so much. So on a certain level, any other drummer who's good, I feel is like a guiding light, because you can just watch them, and even if you just get one little idea, it's
good. Yeah, that sounds great. And I agree with you. I mean, I didn't even think about how at the time, like when you were starting, there was like, there was a very small presence of female performers, especially in the indie rock world.
Yep.
But yeah, that's great. Derek, do you have anything to add?
I think I'm just done waiting for a mentor to enter my life, and I'm just at the point where just have to be my own guru here. And it's sort of, I was just thinking about this. It's a little full circle because I feel like, we have this music out here. And to me, it's like there are these templates that I can study from and I can commune with. And somehow I like to think that the music I make is somehow, mixing with the greats, even though it will never get to that level. There's this idea that there is this like connection of a thread of this community almost, I guess is the word. I don't know what it is. Okay. So like in that sense, it's like the mentors I have are like all these great records, and I can listen to this and be like, I'm going to steal this and maybe it will work and maybe it will sound like a whole new song. And so like in that sense, I've learned to sort of listen closer to what, somebody like Tom Petty is saying. Like, I feel like he's probably written the same song 10 million times, and it's him and his girl breaking up or making up. It's one of the two,
Yes, because that's true. I really admire that and respect that. I like that you can kind of be your own inspiration.
I wish, some days it works.
No, sure it does. I mean, you have to have a little bit of kind of self-righteousness and what you're doing when you're an artist, like when you're making something, you have to be a little fearless to a degree, so because
I want to claim Tom Petty as my mentor, even though I've never met the guy. I feel connection and I'm inspired, and I feel like I've learned from that.
Cool. Well, that's great. Well, guys, can I say that it's been wonderful to speak with all of you?
Thank you. It's been great to talk with you too.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that we got to make a little Providence connection. You obviously know a lot of the people that I know, and that's just great to share those experiences and share those stories about these people.
Yeah, it's fun.
I've always been a big fan. Always been a big fan of the Providence music scene, and I know that you are not per se a Providence band, but you kind of are an honorary member of this community.
A cousin.
Yeah, very cool. Well, so I hope to see you guys very soon. Either in New York or Boston, or obviously you plan on coming through here. So
I think in the fall. I think it's going to happen.
Cool. Well, let me know for sure. I definitely want to be there, and I gotta. And and the record, you're not. It's only going to be released digitally.
For now, it is. Yeah, we really want to do vinyl, and are trying to figure that out. But we also couldn't wait any longer to get it out. So it's coming out, and hopefully sometime in the next 6 months there'll be some vinyl available. We do want to. We have a vinyl master done, ready to go. So.
Oh, okay. So it is in the pipeline.
It's almost in the pipeline. We're just trying to figure out how to make that happen.
We need the blobs of vinyl.
Yeah.
And we need a little financial help too. I think the records aren't cheap.
Right.
No, I know. I'm doing it right now. It's not great.
No.
Okay. Well, then I mean, I hope to see it. If not, it's not I don't know how you feel about it, but a lot of people are releasing cassettes and CDs now too.
Yeah, that's
those are fairly inexpensive to produce.
That's a possibility. We thought about that too.
Okay.
Vinyl's cool. Because that's my favorite, but
no, I agree with you, man. And trust me, it's I know it's costly. I know it takes a lot financially, and also a lot of time, but totally worth it when you ultimately get it. So even if it's down the road a few months from now, but for now, people can just get the record digitally through Bandcamp to purchase, and then obviously it'll be streaming everywhere too, Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff.
Yep, it's all ready to go. It'll be when people hear this, it'll be out there.
Yep.
Great, sounds good. Well, congratulations on making a great record, guys, and it's been great to speak with you.
Yeah, same here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, no problem.